Hello, everyone. I am Damon Eklund with UW Sustainability. For those of you that don't know, the UW Sustainability Office is sort of a central resource for sustainability across the University of Washington. We're also one of the main organizers for a number of Earth Day events across the University of Washington. And this year we've been collaborating very closely with the College of Environment's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team to ensure that this 50th anniversary of Earth Day is as inclusive and welcoming as possible, and we are very happy to have some members of that team here with us today for this discussion. This is part of our Sustainability Stories series we started in January, highlighting some of the different sustainability work happening across the university as a lead up to Earth Day. And I'll let my colleague Torin talk a little bit more about our Earth Day efforts and the event today.
Awesome. Thanks, Damon. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. So 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which has been celebrated at UW since 1970. So it's kind of an exciting time. So though we're unable to be on campus this year, which is unfortunate, we're still working to provide a platform for good discussions like the one today. Sustainability, as Damon said, has been working alongside College of the Environment's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team for quite some time to try to make our events more inclusive, specifically to Earth Day. So today, I am very excited to introduce Terryl Ross and Isabel Carrera Zamanillo from College of the Environment Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team. They are going to talk about their great work that they do and tell us a little bit about some cool projects that they're working on, the 50 for 50 pledge, and then also kind of how they got started in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion and environmentalism. But before that, I would like to congratulate Terryl on an award that he recently won, the American Society of Public Administration's Gloria Hobson Norden Social Equity Award. So congratulations, Terryl. And with that, I will let you guys kick it off.
Well, thank you, Torin and Damon. So I'm Terryl Ross here at the University of Washington and College of the Environment, and we have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. And Isabel, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, my name is Isabel Carrera Zamanillo, and I work as a Program Operations Specialist in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the College of the Environment, supporting Terryl in the efforts in the college and across UW.
And something that is very interesting to know is that we are the largest College of the Environment in America. And so our office was really excited about Earth Day. We see Earth Day as an opportunity to bring people together in a new way. And so we're very excited to be working with the Office of Sustainability. We've been working with them ever since I've been here for 3 years. I'm in my 3rd year here in this office. And we've been working with them every year. But I think this year was probably the most organized that we've been for Earth Day. So I'm really glad to be working with both of you in your office, and I'm excited to be part of this story. So Torin, are you going to ask the first question, or do you want us to do that?
Yeah, I will ask you guys the first question. So tell us a little bit about your background with environmentalism and then how you got started with DE&I.
Thank you, Torin and Terryl. So my background is in biology. So I am from Mexico. I grew up in Mexico City, one of the most polluted and dynamic cities in the world. We are about 22 million people in just one city. So you can imagine how crazy it was. When I was growing up, things got really bad because of pollution, and that's when a program started, for example, when we stopped using our car at least once per week. So I grew up looking into these issues and always concerned about the environment, even though I was living in an urban area. Later on, I did my bachelor's in biology, and then I did a master's in evolutionary biology, but I was looking into how scientists classify living organisms and what is the impact in conservation. Because if we think that the way that scientists are organizing and defining what is, as they call, species, then that has an impact on policy making. And maybe the funds, for example, we have seen many organizations across the world investing millions of dollars, for example, to save whales, orcas, polar bears. So imagine all that money relies on how we're defining a unit in nature that scientists call species. While I was doing this, I was also collaborating in a project in Chiapas, which is the southern state in Mexico, in the border with Guatemala, looking into evictions of indigenous communities in the Lacandon jungle. This is one of the largest biodiversity hotspots in the world. And the reason that these communities were being evicted was to preserve the jungle, to be able to sell carbon credits to the state of California here in the United States. So these communities really were losing their identity, their history. They were used to live in this jungle. They shaped and co-evolved with the jungle, and suddenly they were kicked out and forced to move to new territories that they didn't know. So that started or sparked an interest in me. And I came later on to the United States in 2014. I started a doctoral degree in the School of Forest and Environmental Sciences at University of Washington. And I completed my PhD in 2017. I was working especially with Latinx communities in the Seattle metropolitan area, understanding better what was their sense of connectedness to nature, how migration could affect that sense, and then how food practices could inform us about issues of food sovereignty, environmental justice, and this sense of connectedness in these communities. About almost 2 years ago, I started working with Terryl, and it has been extraordinary, an extraordinary experience. My work and my formation in DI has been more from a practical perspective, doing culturally relevant STEM outreach and working with different indigenous communities in Mexico and the United States. But it was until I got into this position that I was really able to put in practice and think about how we can transform our college in UW and look into academia and transform it into action, and to maybe foster partnerships with local communities, not just in the state of Washington, but across the world, and what equitable partnerships will look like under the lens of environmental justice. But what about you, Terryl?
So, you know, I've done diversity work my whole life, and it started, you know, from high school and it's gone. I'm a baby boomer. I just turned 60 recently, and so I actually did diversity work before it was called diversity work, and it started off as multiculturalism, and now it's DEI. We actually have a field of work, a field of practice. We have a language. We have positions like ours on campuses all over the country. So it's very exciting that way. So, but I think the story about my environmentalism is even more interesting because most people from my demographic background never got involved in the environmental movement. And so I was a graduate student at Syracuse, and one day I was in a store, and very rarely did I go to these, the big stores. And this was one time I was in the store and I walked by and I saw this magazine, and it was the Time magazine, and it was called the Planet of the Year. And when I do post-production on this, I'll actually put that up there. And it was like they had a planet on a beach. They had a little globe wrapped in cellophane, and they had the sun setting beneath it. It was just a stunning picture. And in the article, they had a 33-page spread about the environment. And they had these beautiful pictures, and they just kind of got in it and got out of it. So it wasn't very long, it wasn't very deep, but it was profound. And it literally, I read it, I read the thing cover to cover, couldn't put it down, and it changed me, and it made me want to get involved with the environment. So much so that I actually called up Time Magazine, and I was actually working with them until my father got sick and I had to come back home. But so it changed me, and since that time, I don't know if you all know this, but Seattle was the first city in America to look at sustainable indicators for a city. 1993, it was a project called Seattle Indicators Project by a guy named Alan Atkinson, and I was part of that. And fast forward, I think it was in 2008, there was this Focus the Nation by a guy named Eben Goldstein, and I was on the board. I didn't do the work. He did all of the work, but it was a teach-in all over the country looking at global warming. And I've done work with the Chamber of Commerce, with their environmental committee. When I was in Seattle, I had a program called Tremendous Seattle. And so I just love it. But I have to say that for me, the big change has been the intergovernmental, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was done by the United Nations. And I think it was a little bit over a year ago, where they basically came out and said that we're going to get warmer. And if we only get 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer, it's going to be bad, but we'll do okay. They said if it gets to be 2 degrees Celsius warmer by 2030 is the date that they used. They said if it's going to be 2 degrees Celsius, that it's actually going to be catastrophic. And what I like about what they did is they told us the truth. They gave us a warning and said, everybody needs to pay attention to this. And so since I've been here in a college, that came out. And so we are really excited about Earth Day. We think it's a great opportunity to bring people together, but we're even more excited about what's going to happen over the next year, because we see the April 22nd as the beginning of a year-long worth of activities to really get people involved. And our role is to make it inclusive. The first Earth Day that happened in 1970, it was a great idea. They got millions of students from K through 12 and millions of students from college involved in celebrating the Earth. However, I mean, so let's applaud that, because that was great, and it actually launched a movement. The negative is that it was not inclusive. It didn't involve people that look like me, for the most part. It didn't involve people that look like Isabel, for the most part. And so as we go forward, what we're excited about is about being more inclusive and leading with inclusivity and things that we're about to do.
Terryl, can you talk a little bit more about the efforts, especially this year, to create a bridge between environmentalism and diversity, equity, and inclusion? In particular, can you please talk about the Intersectionality project and how people can get involved?
Yeah, well, you know, Isabel, so first of all, I want to say we have 74 participants, and we want to welcome all of you, and we're really excited that you're a part of this. You know, so the number one reason that people get involved, I should say, is that someone that they like or someone that they value asks them to. It's a real simple thing. It's a person thing. And what I was realizing is that I'm so interesting, because I was telling some of the environmental people, I feel like I'm working in Groundhog Day, because all of the environmental people always come to me and say, Terryl, how can we make this more diverse? And usually I have kind of the same answer, and I know Claudia's on here, and she's going to laugh, because I usually have the same answer. The same answer is that, well, find the people that you want to get involved with and go to them, you know, meet them in their setting, and let them know that you value them, and don't just go once. You know, you have to go multiple times. You got to show up and you got to participate. And so what I see is that on one plane, I have the environmental communities that I love to be part of. And on the other plane, I have the diversity communities, but they don't really interact very much. And so we came up with a project that's called the Intersectionality Project. And it's a really simple idea, is that we simply want to get people from one community to talk to people from the other community and do something together. So on the sustainability website, and I believe on the College of the Environmental website, we have a link to the Intersectionality Project. And so what you do, and I know Claudia's on here, what you do is you talk to someone that you know. That's step number one. You talk to someone that you know and you tell them a little bit about who you are and how you see the world and a little bit about your DEI journey and a little bit about your environmental journey. And based upon that conversation, that person picks a person that they want you to meet. So Claudia and I have met, and between now and Earth Day, I'm going to introduce her to someone named Juanita Ricks. Juanita doesn't know this yet, so she might be finding out right now. And I would like those two to meet. And it's very simple that they're going to meet, they're going to have the same type of discussion, and then based upon their meeting, they're going to do something together that has either to do with DEI or the environment. Doesn't matter. And then they're going to come online through the UW sustainability page and post what they decided to do and what they learned. And then the last phase is that they actually recruit 2 other people to do the same thing. And so as you can see, it won't take very long for it to double, and then for that to double, and for that to double. And it's just grassroots. And it doesn't matter what they do. They could read a book, they could watch a movie together. And what's really great, because in a second I'm going to ask Isabel about the 50 for 50 project, and we have a whole bunch of projects that we were going to do in person, but now because of the coronavirus, we actually can do a lot of the same stuff virtually or remotely. So we're very excited about that. So anyway, that's kind of what the Intersectionality Project is. And so if you don't mind, Isabel, can you talk a little bit about the 50 for 50 project, the 50 for 50 pledge?
Yeah, for sure. So about 3 months ago, we started thinking about, okay, how people could engage in Earth Day and other environmental activities by coming and from where they are. We hear a lot about environmental calculators and how to calculate your, for example, your carbon footprint. They are useful tools, but in many cases, they don't represent the reality of many people. For example, some of these calculators estimate how environmentally friendly someone can be based on the use of LED bulbs. But in reality, not everyone can afford buying LED bulbs. Does that make them less environmentally friendly? Nope. So when designing this 50 for 50 pledge, we took some of the ideas that are already existing, but also some of the initiatives that are present in the UW community. We connected with student registered organizations. For example, some of them have recipes to do food with maybe food obtained from the farm. Other can be connecting with the recycling team. So there are many opportunities to do actions that will be considered environmentally friendly. Furthermore, we wanted to acknowledge that environmentalism, especially mainstream environmentalism, has not been inclusive. And that's why a great deal for us is environmental justice. This means recognizing that communities of color and Native American communities have been historically more exposed to environmental hazards and have less chance to access natural resources and opportunities related to nature. So doing this, we incorporated a section with some ideas on environmental justice and how to connect not just at UW, but across the Seattle area. So the 50 for 50 pledge, these are 50 little actions. They can go to just go and visit one website. For example, with the libraries, with UW libraries, we created a list of resources for environmental justice. To read a book, or maybe download an app, or maybe connect with an organization that is at UW or even outside of UW. Look into some of the tools that City of Seattle or King County has. The idea is to help people connect, not just with the environment, but with each other. So you can also take this 50 for 50 pledge. You can decide what actions you want to take. You don't have to take the entire list of actions, but these are suggestions for you to think and really engage and promote action. And this is mindful action. We want people to also connect and share their experiences and say, I took the pledge. And you can take a photo and say, I took a pledge with a sign, I took a pledge, and maybe post it through the social media, through UW Sustainability. So there are many chances to say and to see action and transform our world. Nothing is gonna change if we do nothing. So this is a great way to start engaging with different communities across the area and also with our natural environment.
So Isabel, I wanted to add one other thing about the Intersectionality project, and that is that I said that a lot of times in the work that I do, it feels like Groundhog Day because the environmental community, they really want to, includes sustainability, it includes, conservation, or all these different, there is no monolith for the environmental community, there's several communities, just like the diversity communities are made up of all different types of diversity. But what's interesting is that right now today, I think the environmental community is far more interested in working with diversity than diversity is in working with the environment. And it doesn't mean that people who do diversity work don't care about the environment. It just means that they have other priorities right now. And in fact, Isabel, you're part of the video that I did that has, I think, 5 people who are staff people at the University of Washington. And they actually talked a little bit about diversity and about their lack of involvement in the environmental community. So what we're excited about with intersectionality is that we think that by the time it's over, people are going to actually meet people from the other community and do something together. And like I said, it doesn't matter as much what they do. It matters that they do, and then that they go out and recruit people from their inner circles. So Isabel, let's see here. The other question that I have is, what are your hopes and aspirations going forward now with the work that you're doing here and the work that you're doing outside of the University of Washington when it comes to either DEI and or the environment?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Really, I think that I cannot separate my work from my personal life. I'm really committed to environmental and climate justice topics. And the reason is because, yes, I care a lot about the nature, the natural environment, but I don't see a division between what I do and my person and the natural environment. I mean, if we think that all environmental issues are connected to social issues, then that dichotomy culture nature, it's a little bit false. So I want to make sure that we understand that if we see nature as part of us, then we will take care of our home. I don't like to think that nature is just something that it's outdoors, it's outside of my door, because nature is also where I live. It's me, it's what I eat, it's what I breathe, what I drink. And also the actions I do have an impact in the environment. So I don't see the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion and the world of environmentalism really divided. I think that more people doing social justice are looking also into climate justice and environmental justice as a way to bring awareness and to motivate people to do something. And as you mentioned, considering what the IPCC said in that report, it's time we do something and we do it collectively, not just as an individual. So I think it's a great opportunity this Earth Day. We understand this situation with COVID-19 is difficult, and it's bringing a lot of awareness also on structural inequities in the system. But maybe through some of our actions, by connecting with each other, which is the spirit of the Intersectionality project, then we can make a change. So let's take not just April 22nd as an opportunity to engage, but also as an opportunity to stay engaged and active and continue working towards a more inclusive world. What about you, Terrell? What are your hopes and aspirations for the DI world and environmentalism moving forward?
You know, more than anything else, so when they came out with their report, they said that we have to reach those levels by 2030. And the way that the world that I've lived in has worked is that people are actually going to get really involved in 2029, and that'll be too late. And so my hope more than anything else is that, you know, and you know, I don't want to use the coronavirus in a negative way, but you know, we had some warning signs early, and if people had heeded to the warning signs early, we probably would not, you know, have the situation that we have in this country. And I think the same thing with the environment. We've been given a warning sign, and and the other thing that I've learned from this situation, the coronavirus situation, is there are a lot of people who are looking at the government and they're pointing fingers, and there are fingers that certainly need to be pointed, but not right now. And I think that what people have always, we have a lot more power than we think, especially in America. And I would like us to put the power back in our own hands and take responsibility for being part of the change. And I have to say that what really excites me are the young people. And like I said, I'm a baby boomer, and I have to say that when it comes to environmentalism, I don't think that we walked our talk as much as we should have. I think we should have been more active in a deeper way. And I think it's time for us to move over and let the younger people, you know, work with them. And because they see the power of this, and they realize that it's a serious issue. And you know what, the final thing I'll say about that is that I think that what we can do and the work that we're all doing is that we can make this attainable, and we can make it, you know, realistic. It's like if everybody just did a little bit. I mean, we're all busy, we all have full lives and this, that, and the other, but if we just put 5% of our time into thinking about the environment and kind of have an all hands on deck and start with wherever we're at, the little things that we can do in our own world, because it's going to take individual action and collective action. And so I'm glad that it's being recognized. I'm glad that climate change is a topic that people are talking about. But what I think that we can do is we can help to make it more accessible, and we can help to make people feel like they belong and they want to be part of it. The other thing is that Seattle and the Pacific Northwest has a very good and long history of activism from all different types of diversity groups. And I would like to see Seattle step it up the next level and really help with that.
Terrell, before we move into some of the questions, I wanted to ask you, you started a couple of years ago the Environmental Justice Conference. Can you talk a little bit more about it, and maybe what opportunities give for people to maybe work from or joining that social justice aspect and that environmental aspect?
Yeah, so you know, Isabel, it's very interesting that something that's kind of come out recently is that, so most campuses have a sustainability office, most campuses have diversity, you know, and they're both of those issues are rooted in social justice. And so what we realize is that would be a good catalyst to get people involved. And before I talk about the Environmental Justice Conference, you know, I used to work at UW-Bothell, and I started a diversity conference there, and it's now entering its 6th year. And so I'm really excited about that. And as you know, here at the University of Washington, you know, I helped do the Bridging the Gap breakfast that is now in its 25th year. And so what I've learned is that you can take a good idea, work with a small group of committed people, and you can turn that into something that's bigger. And so, as you know, we did the first Environmental Justice Conference, and I think we barely had, 100 people, probably, closer to 50. They came in and out, throughout, but I don't think we ever had more than 50. And then the second year we doubled it. And then this year we have an environmental justice conference that we're going to do in May. And we don't think that that we're going to, we think that social distancing will probably still be in vogue in May. So we can do this virtually. And so you and I are right now looking at different platforms that we could use. And we want to get involved with people that are maybe even outside of the University of Washington. So I'm very excited about that. We're looking to have, we already have our keynote speaker. What's his name? The keynote speaker's name?
Christopher Schell from University of Tacoma.
Yeah.
University of Washington, Tacoma, sorry.
The only thing I remember about him is he works with tarantulas. So I just tell him no tarantulas during his speech, okay? Because I don't like him. I like him, not the tarantulas. But what we're looking at to do is to have some breakout rooms where people can actually talk about issues that matter. We know that, and so you want to talk a little bit about some of the other panels that we have in mind right now?
Yeah, for sure. So we're looking into some workshops, and actually we opened a call for proposals about 2 months ago. And this was, we received proposals from members at University of Washington, but also from members from different community organizations in the Seattle area. And what we came together, we had a committee who decided who was going to be part of those workshops, because we received many proposals, and although we wanted everyone to be able to facilitate a workshop, we're constrained by time. So we picked 4 of them. So 2 of them are linked, are members from University of Washington, while 2 others are from community organizations. And the nice part is that the Environmental Justice Conference is open to everyone who wants to attend. Last year, we have members from different community organizations, as well as faculty members in the University of Washington, who are working closely with different communities across the state, looking into environmental justice topics. And the idea was, well, how can we really collaborate and work together to solve these issues? Because at the end of the day, it's not that just one group is receiving all the burdens, although we know that communities of color and Native American communities are the ones receiving those different burdens in a higher and faster way than privileged communities. But at the end of the day, the planet is for everyone, right? So how to really engage in a meaningful and respectful way with different communities, how to work together and how to promote meaningful action. So looking into that on our website, on the diversity, equity, and inclusion section, you will be able to find more information about upcoming details, including the titles of these workshops. And we hope we can have also now moving into these virtual environments, a space to have affinity groups and interest groups where people can network, join, and have meaningful conversations.
Thank you. So Torin and Damon, I've been following some of the chat, and I'm wondering if there's anything on that we should talk about, or any of the questions.
Well, so there was a couple of comments about some diversity committees that are on campus. So there's the Jackson School and the Professional Staff Organization both have DEI committees. They talked about bringing them together with environmental or sustainability committees. From the UW sustainability standpoint, one of our challenges is always just kind of knowing who everyone is on campus that's doing even sustainability work, much less diversity, equity, inclusion work. And so I was curious if you have any thoughts on how we as an institution might be better able to bring together some of these groups that are working on both of these aspects, since we're so often decentralized and there's so many people working on these various aspects in their own departments or their own ways, and we don't necessarily know about them in any sort of centralized way. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on how we might, as an institution, bring more of these groups together.
Yeah, so, I'll just say, real fast is that I think something that would be great is just to do like an audit and look at the efforts that are already taking place. Now, I can tell you that DEI people on campus, we gather on a regular basis. We do it in the College of the Environment. We have our diversity committee coming up next week. There's a group called the Diversity Leads, people who have positions like mine all over the campus we meet. And we also have a diversity council that meets. And so in the College of the Environment, we have the Office of DEI. And there are lots of other colleges at the UW that have that. I'm glad to see the committees that have also been formed. And so, yeah, we can do an audit of the campus and get that information out. And then something that I'm really excited about that we're doing here in the college is we have what we call quarterly gatherings. And we've been having the diversity community gathering each quarter. We also are doing it with STEM, and maybe we can do sustainability or environmental gathering each quarter. And a gathering usually involves the transfer of information. It involves food, and it involves networking abilities. And so gatherings are a kind of a movement that's taking place all over the country, and we can certainly do that here at the University of Washington. I do want to say that I'm an alum of the University of Washington. All of you know I look at me, I always wear my UW stuff here. The University of Washington is in most higher ed institutions are the most diverse place that you will ever work at. And so I'm really glad that we have all of this, but what I think the next level looks like is that it actually works together in a way that it hasn't happened before. Because there's, Isabel and I are lucky because we spend a lot of our time outside of the office, and we get to meet these wonderful people. And we're at the point in our time here that it's less about us now, and it's more about connecting people with each other. And anything that we can do to make that happen would be great.
I think our office may want to connect with you after this to see if we can maybe do a sort of joint diversity sustainability gathering like you've talked about, where we can invite some of the groups that we know of doing sustainability work to connect with more of those groups doing diversity work. And I think that could lead to some great conversations. And are you able to see the other couple of comments we have in the chat there?
So with the question with Carrie, are you reaching out to high school students to participate in the Environmental Justice Conference? It seems like there is a lot of untapped energy within the community of teens to help promote environmental justice and environmental awareness. Well, I'm a committee member, board member of SciCan, and SciCan is a group that works especially with the students looking into climate change and activating them. We connect with them in different capacities. And although we don't necessarily send all the information to everyone in, for example, King County and all the teachers, we send invitations to participate through some networks, including Environmental People of Color, and then Green Schools, and other of our contacts. If you want us to reach out to particular groups, please let us know. We don't know everyone, and we are happy to meet with more people and invite more people to the Environmental Justice Conference. So if you want to send any recommendations, and I'm going to put my email in the chat box. It's M as in Maria, I as in Isabel, C as in Carrera, C as in Zebra @uw.edu. And you can send me all your suggestions, questions, ideas, or maybe connections.
Okay, so I'll read Marilyn's, and how do you pronounce Marilyn's last name so I can get it right? Ostergen, is that right? Damon and Torin, is that how you pronounce her last name?
Ostergren.
Ostergren. Okay, thank you. I want to say it right, Marilyn Ostergren. what she said is, she goes, I don't want to be negative, but I'd like to hear you say what you see that the UW does poorly in regards to how well we incorporate DEI in our sustainability efforts. And it touches upon what I was saying earlier, is that what I've seen with sustainability is the sustainability, it has a community, has a way of thinking, and a communities of practice, just like we do in diversity. And sustainability always wants diversity to come into their space. And I think that sustainability needs to go into the diversity space. So all of you know that that we have a sustainability plan that we're going to announce between now and Earth Day. And so my office has been involved, and I've been, very upfront and very honest that the way that it was designed did not lend itself to inclusion, because it was deadline driven. And so the deadline was already chosen. And so what I've said the whole way is, like, you can't have Terryl and Isabel come to your event and say that that's the diversity that's going to take place, because our job is to not do it anymore, but to facilitate people doing it for themselves, right? If you teach someone to fish, then they will be fed for the rest of their lives. Don't do it for people, let people learn how to do it for themselves. And so we looked at what was happening, and I just said, the way that you're doing this, it will not be done in an inclusive way, because the way that you framed it would be different if you went to some of the communities from the front end. So what we can do is we can meet your deadline, because there's nothing wrong with trying to meet deadlines, but let's spend the first year of this plan actually being inclusive, almost starting from ground zero and going out to some of the communities. And I have to say that you all in the sustainability office and the people working on the plan, I'm so excited with all the students that you got involved. And I know there was one meeting, usually when we have meetings with students, we'll get 20, 30, on a good day, we'll get 50. But you had over 100 people, 100 students come to that sustainability plan, and it was diverse. And so stuff like that is how to do it going forward. So that's what we do poorly, Marilyn.
And I just wanted to add a little bit to that, which gets a little bit at Maria's question at all. She says, are you looking at including diversity and equity under sustainability like many Fortune 500 companies are? And to that point, we are working currently on a sustainability plan for the university, as Terryl mentioned, that will be, more details will be released on Earth Day on April 22nd. We'll have sort of the general framework of that plan and ability for people to provide feedback and kind of talk about what that will look like going forward. The idea behind the plan is also going to be that we're working on, we'll have some longer and mid-range targets, but every year there'll be annual action. So it's going to be an ongoing living document, and part of that is going to be working on how we include inclusion into it. There's a lot of talk in that plan about centering diversity and equity in that. As Terryl just mentioned, we may not have lived up to that as fully as we could, just based on the way that it was working, but we are working on looking at how we can integrate diversity and equity into more aspects of sustainability, and that is part of the plan and one of the targets of the plan moving forward. So hopefully our office, other offices on campus, Terrell's office, other diversity efforts on campus will be able to work sort of in a more collaborative way and inclusive way to make that sustainability and diversity and equity more of a integrated aspect on campus, rather than, as I think they are a little bit too much now, separate. So that I think will hopefully be something that we're at least going to be working on as an institution going forward. Any other questions in the chat for Terryl and Isabel, or I guess while we wait for any other questions, Terryl and Isabel, do you have any other thoughts that you'd kind of like to share?
Isabel, you want to go first?
We are collaborating also with different departments across campus, but because again, traditionally Earth Day, UW Earth Day was left to UW Sustainability. And no, let's take responsibility and make this Earth Day together, because it's for all of UW. So a nice part of this now digital Earth Day is that Buffalo and Tacoma and Seattle campuses will come together and have different digital and virtual events that day. So it's a great way to connect. The second thing is, for example, we got the Department of History reaching out and saying, hey, how can we collaborate? So there will be a great lecture you can see in the calendar of events. And now I know that UW Botanic Gardens is also incorporating a lot of activities and events towards Earth Day and beyond, because again, Earth Day, it's not just gonna be April 22nd. We hope to have more events moving towards the year, and hopefully ways to engage and then be more inclusive. But Terrell, do you have any other ideas?
Yeah, and that is that you know, one of my favorite sayings is, you know, bloom where you're planted. And I think that this is a time for reflection, but I also think it's a time for action. And I really can't think of two topics that are more important, you know, and the fact that we get to kind of reflect a little bit on what's happened over the last 50 years, but also look forward, to me is what's most exciting. And so I would like all of you, everyone that's on this, to participate in the 50 for 50 pledge, and also to participate in the Intersectionality Project. And I just now sent you all my email address, and feel free to email me. It's tjross@uw.edu, .edu. And if you need help meeting someone from one of the other communities, just tell me what community you're in and what you're looking for, and I will help find someone for you to do the Intersectionality Project with. The final thing I want to say, I just really want to thank the Sustainability Office. You know, you all, you know, like, you know, the first year when we were doing all this, we were a little late, and this year you were very early. I mean, you had stuff up months in advance, you know, and you had the logo out like months in advance. And I'm just, you know, I'm really sorry that we weren't able to do it, you know, face to face, but in a weird way, I think maybe some of the virtual stuff, we might be able to reach people that we wouldn't have reached. So I just want to commend you all for doing such a great job and really helping, I think, to make one of the better Earth Day celebrations we're going to see in America.
Well, and I certainly appreciate both your and Isabel's help as we've gone through the planning for all of this. You know, this has been really a multi-year effort to kind of look towards this 50th anniversary. It looks like we don't have any other questions in the chat right now. So I just wanted to thank both you, Terrell and Isabel. Thank you very much for your time and the discussion we had today. And to let everyone know, this is kind of the first event that we've had through April, you know, kind of Earth Month. But we have a full calendar of events. There's going to be another Sustainability Stories next Thursday at the same time. That one's with Jessica Holmes, who taught the first ever vegan studies class here at the University of Washington, and is going to have a discussion about vegan studies and what that, you know, veganism might mean for around the environmental movement, and you know, and intersectionality throughout that. And also there's a number of events happening the week of April 20th. Earth Day itself is April 22nd. There's events happening throughout most of that week. And we are continuing to work with some of our campus partners to finalize more events. We'll be adding more events to the calendar. So I put in the chat the Earth Day of a site that has a link to the full event calendar. If you follow UW Sustainability on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, we'll be posting about all events as they happen. And we hope that many of you will be able to join us for some more of those events, because as Terrell said, I think this does give us a great opportunity to maybe reach people that may not have been able to attend some of these events in person, and to attend them virtually, and hopefully we can connect some different communities. So thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you to Terrell and Isabel and Torn for being a part of this event. And check out more of the Earth Day events happening, and we hope to see you at some of those future events.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Terrell and Isabel. Thanks, Damon.
Thank you, and feel free to reach out to us.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.